10 seconds.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
Well, not really. It's Dr. Tim Slekar from BustED Pencils filling in for Dom in the Dom Salvia Show today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and listening. And again, always for all of the BustED Pencils listeners out there. Yeah, it is me live back on the radio.
Yeah.
And Jess is here. The number's 855-752-4842, just to get that out there right away. And, here we are, jump right into it. The day after the tragedy in Madison, the school shooting. And, coming in, I knew I was going to be guest hosting for Dom and before this happened, and realizing that, okay, we're going to talk about this on the Dom Salvia Show. And we have a real special guest today. She's the executive director and co-founder of Teachers Unified to End Gun Violence. She is a veteran elementary school teacher with over 30 years of experience and a survivor of the 2012 Sandy Hook tragedy, where she courageously protected her second grade students. She's a leading voice in gun violence prevention, having worked with organizations like Moms Demand Action and the AFT. She's dedicated to amplifying the voices of educators in the fight to end gun violence and advocating for real solutions to keep our schools and communities safe. Welcome to the Dom Salvia Show, Abby Clements. Hi, Abby. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this type of an appearance. We were talking a little bit before the show. At what point do you say, my goodness, not again? And, how do you address this? I just wonder, your thoughts. You've been through this way too many times since Sandy Hook, but what were your first thoughts?
I mean, when I see a headline like this, we saw yesterday, I have to take a minute before I look. It's like you see it and I think I audibly said, no, out loud. And I have to wait a second before, almost to prepare myself to read what happens way too often in this country. And the thought of my students, you asked me how I do this, and my former second graders who I ran out of the building with in Newtown, they are 18 and 19 years old. And they have watched these tragedies happen over and over again. And I just know that for them, for my kids, for next generations, we have to do something. We have to take a stand and do things that are hard. And also I know my former students are watching me, and I feel this great responsibility having survived the tragedy in Newtown. And so for me, it's just always been this way to move forward, even though you kind of relive those same feelings, and you think about the aftermath of that entire school community. There were a lot of kids in that building and all their families, and they will be forever changed in some way. And just knowing that it does take a toll, but it makes you feel like you have to help make a change so that we could do something about this.
Well, yeah, I want to talk more about that very specifically a little bit here. What came across, so you and Randy Weingarten with the AFT put out a joint statement yesterday. And again, kind of paraphrasing the quote of the lead police officer in Madison, we got to stop asking why schools need bulletproof glass and metal detectors and start asking why they need to have them. can we shift this conversation at this point to finally start addressing root causes? Is that the work that is absolutely immediately what we need to be doing? I mean, Abby, thinking about this, for the fact for somebody to say, let's stop talking about making schools safer. Let's stop talking about this happening, or let's start talking about making this not happen, as opposed to how do we protect this, or, again, minimize, make it less. How about make it not?
I do think that this conversation can shift. It needs to shift. This is not a political issue. And somehow it has been put into that space. So we find ourselves with lousy laws, laws that are not protecting kids and the people who care for them, their families, their teachers. But I do think that there is an opportunity to look at this, because this happens, they're armed guards, there are panic buttons, there are newfangled this and that, there are bulletproof clipboards, backpacks, but we have got to get a handle on easy access to firearms, because we just can't compete with that kind of firepower. And, working with AFT, it is so important, because educators just have not had a voice in on this issue. Meanwhile, we're on the front lines every single day. And our students, whether it happens in school or across the street or at a homecoming event or a basketball game, we're dealing with it in our classrooms the next day. So, ever since the tragedy, Randy has, and Shirley beforehand, has been dedicated to raising the voices of teachers, to carving out opportunities in conferences and conventions for us to organize teachers to help people speak up on this issue. It's very challenging in the climate we're in as teachers to speak up about this, because unfortunately that piece about it being political, which I don't know why it is, but working with her, I think we're on track to what you said about making the shift about like responsibility and locking up your firearms and keeping away from kids, and also raising the voices of teachers who are need to be heard.
We're talking to Abby Clements. She's the co-founder and executive director of Teachers Unified to End Gun Violence, survivor of the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting, second grade teacher at the time. And it's Dr. Tim Slekar. I'm sitting in for Dom today. I'm glad I could be here and do this. Not a show I wanted to do. It's not a show anybody ever wants to do. And we're trying to have when is it going to end? When are we going to stop having the conversation of how do we make schools more safe? How do we protect kids from, because there's an assumption in that preparation that says we're not willing to stop it. And that to me, Abby, is the kind of full face where we put it forward and say, like, what's wrong with going back to why don't we stop it and let's talk about those solutions instead of protecting for when it does, getting ready when it will. All of these conversations always just push forward this it's gonna happen. And I can hear people going, well, Tim, we have a responsibility to make kids safe. We need to do everything. We do. We're saying that. We understand that. But where's the conversation about saying, when are we going to do the things that we know we can do to make it stop? Like, how frustrating is that for you in this?
It is incredibly frustrating. I mean, somehow we've gotten to the place where we say there's the Second Amendment, so then we shrug our shoulders and say this is just part of it, and this is not. There's no reason why we cannot have both. Right. And why does one overstep the other? We have a right to live. We have a right to go to school safely. We have a right to go to the grocery store, to church, to the park. So I don't know why we found ourselves in this place, but I don't think it's impossible to break through. I think that the responsibility on parents to lock up their firearms, I feel like this is the way. This is the shift in a little culture change that can save lives. I saw a number today from the Washington Post that was higher than I had seen before, that the percentage of weapons used in school shootings that originated from the homes of friends, relatives, or parents in cases where the source of the gun could be determined, according to the Post, is 86%.
Yeah. Okay.
If you just, and this is not, I mean, yes, I mean, Connecticut has strengthened its safe firearm storage law. And there are other states that have done so. But even without it, we can make change by just a slight culture shift of just locking up your gun.
Yeah, you think about that, right? It's just, and enforcing that as a law that this is required. This is not against your Second Amendment rights to require safe storage, to require access be forbidden. To do that, you get to keep your gun, but you have to do this. You have to make sure that it cannot get out of that safekeeping. You, as a responsible adult in that household, we can put together laws that absolutely say this is the bottom line. And you go, would that potentially stop? And as you just cited, Abby, 86%. Yes, that will stop some of these. Yes. It is. It's America. This culture of violence, the whole idea that, right, the number one cause of death of children in this country is gun violence. Man, it's Dr. Tim Slekar. I'm sitting in for the Dom Salvia show today. Our guest, Abby Clements, co-founder and executive director of Teachers Unify to End Gun Violence. Got a lot more. The number is 855-752-4842 if you have a question for Abby. More when we get back.
All right, we'll be back in 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Great. That's BustED Pencils bumper music there, Abby.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of we put together the show from more of a your neighbor punk rock theme, and we've had Randy on a couple of times, and actually we're in a little bit of conversations with AFT to maybe help us create a little bit more bandwidth, particularly with our show BustED Pencils, because really trying to tell the story of public education.
Oh, that's great. Good
yeah.
That.
Yeah. So we said, and people are like, what do you do? A talk show about like bulletin boards and stuff? It's like, no, we're talking about the foundation of American democracy, public schools, and the fact that they're under threat, and, issues like this. And Johnny, my co-host, over the past, 3 years, yeah, guess what? We're getting ready to do a show, and then son of a gun, another school shooting. And guess what? That's our show. And, every time we do that show, it's like, God, when are we going to not do this show?
It's just tragic. It really is. But I do want to say thank you for asking good questions.
Okay.
That's so helpful.
Okay. All right, so we do have a caller. So Abby, do you want to take this call, or do you want to just keep going? Because I can hold him until you're done.
30 seconds.
Either way, whatever you think.
Okay.
For you.
10.
Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show. No, it's not Dom. It's Dr. Tim Slekar sitting in. Yeah, here I am, host of BustED Pencils. Happy to be in here, taking it over for Dom. And, well, just to get to the business, so it's time for another statewide text to win contest. Listen to Civic Media on the app and text that keyword during the 7 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. hours each day for your chance to win a prize from Grown Up Gifts List. Each of these hours, we're giving away either $100 cash or an overnight getaway to Chula Vista Resort in the Dells. Each hourly entry qualifies you for our grand prizes, from espresso machines to robot vacuums. We've got 8 grand prizes from a grown-ups gift list. Today's keyword and giveaway season: overnight Chula Vista stay. Welcome back.
So,
Jess, did I get it all?
So make sure you text in from the app. The word is season. 'Tis the season. SEASON. Go ahead and text that for your chance to win an overnight stay at Chula Vista. And every entry will get you entered for one of those grand prizes. Make sure you should get a text back, a bounce back text from Civic Media. If you're not getting that text back, it means you spelled something wrong. So try it again. The word is season. SEASON.
Well, there it is. So get your phone out and get texting. We are back though. It's the day after here in Wisconsin. The day after a school shooting again, and here we are, and we're talking about it. We have our guest is Abby Clements. She's executive director and co-founder of Teachers Unified to End Gun Violence, also a survivor of the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting, second grade teacher there. We're talking about this from the standpoint, though, as here we are, here are the conversations that people have. How do we, put together the best school shooting drill, the protective clothing, the school resource officers. And we were talking about this, Abby, saying that in all of those, just assume it's going to happen. And I guess we have to be practical now at this point and do all of those things. But I'm tired of the assumption that it has to happen. And you pointed out a statistic on that, the first round there too, that 89% of the guns that are used in these tragic events are guns that came and originated from the household, and how simple locking and keeping those inaccessible to kids. We could do that right now. And when you point that out, do you get any pushback from anybody when you say, like, how about a common sense lock your darn gun up law?
Honestly, like, most of the time I found myself sitting next to somebody on an airplane where I'm headed to a conference, and we get into a conversation, and we happen to be on 2 different sides of the spectrum in terms of maybe politically, and we start talking about guns. At first, the conversation goes, we're very far apart. Mm-hmm. But then the more we really pare it down and talk about it, we're really on the same page. People just want to keep their kids safe, and it's not impossible to do it. And we can do this without, this should not be normalized, what you're talking about, that we should be finding the newest way for like a hiding place to morph into a school library that costs school districts tens of thousands of dollars that they don't have. that will be taken away from things that we need, like more counselors and
Right.
and better curriculum. We can do this, and I feel like there's, well, clearly it's not the numbers that are going to make this change, because our statistics are horrible when it comes to gun violence in America. And like you brought up, the simple fact, the horrible fact that gun violence is a leading cause of death for children and teens in America. I mean, let that sink in. It's horrific. So every sector of our society must have a plan for this, whether it's a campaign, whether they send out a safe storage letter. We helped get New York City public schools, all of their 1 million families received a, hey, if you have firearms, lock them up letter at the beginning of the year. Just like you get a letter about like keeping your household toxic chemicals separate away and locked up from your kids. Like there are ways we can do this, because we can't normalize what we're living in.
Yeah, you just made me think. It's like, the effort we put into making sure kids don't eat Tide Pods. And yeah, and going, it's just like, okay, well then if we're willing to make the effort to stop kids from eating Tide, come on, we've got an effort here. Abby, again, time really moved quickly here today. I just wondered though too, before we go, and Keith, yeah, we will get to you on the next round there. We see you sitting there waiting, Keith from Broadhead. At this moment in this situation, what should somebody who says, I want to be there, I'm going to encounter, because people in Madison, I mean, I lived in Madison for 10 years. This school was right down the road from where I worked. I want to be helpful. What do I say? What don't I say? I just want, because I imagine everybody wants, but nobody wants to trigger into this spot. But how can I be helpful in this moment?
That's such a great question. I wish we had more time to talk about it. And I think that so we have a dual problem. We have the problem that we don't have the vocabulary for this, to how to deal with this trauma, but yet we have it all the time. So we don't know what to do. I think just constantly saying, I'm here for you, and keep checking in. Don't say, let me know if you need anything. Just be there, talk about it, because then it becomes an elephant in the room, and that feeling is awful. Like you don't know what to do, because it's on your mind it's on their minds all the time now, and it will be for a long time. So just be there, show up, listen.
Abby Clements, thank you so much for your time tonight, and I hope you don't have to do this conversation again. Oh, it's Dr. Tim Slekar in for Dom Salvia. When we get back, Keith, we're going to get to you, and anybody else, give those calls, 855-752-4842 when we get back.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Jess, can Abby click out or?
Yes. Abby,
okay.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Abby, thank you. And yeah, have a good party there tonight. And Jess and I will be in touch. Okay. She's gone. Wow. That was good stuff, wasn't it?
We've got Joe from Madison talk about a law that Michigan has for safe storage, and some experiences that a person she knows has had with that.
Okay. Is Keith gone?
Keith is still here.
Okay, so we'll go to Keith first, and then what's the other name?
In a related topic.
Yeah, you don't think Keith will be related?
It is related.
Oh, okay.
Keith also wanted to talk about the fact that this overwhelming majority of guns that are coming from the House
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get Keith, and then who'd you say the other one was? Joe?
Joe. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Okay. What'd you think of that first round there?
Very powerful.
Yeah, yeah, wow. And yeah, we gotta do a full BustED Pencils episode with her.
Let's make sure that we hit the text to win a couple times.
Okay, so you want me to hit it right as we come back again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you want to throw it to me, you can throw it to me.
Okay, I might do that. Yeah, and sadly, you can tell she does this all the time.
Two minutes.
2 minutes.
$30 seconds. Done.
10. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show. Dr. Tim Slekar, BustED Pencils, sitting in. You know, I can do this work too.
Yeah,
Jess.
I hear that, you've got a show and all that has some radio time. Is that
Yeah,
true?
yeah. You can check out BustED Pencils, of course, the podcast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Saturday, 3 o'clock across all Civic Media connections. BustED Pencils, 1 hour fully. Would love for you to be there. Jess, there's another contest with Civic Media.
There is indeed a text to win contest going on. Civic Media's grown-up gift list, as Dom keeps pointing out, that's not an adult gift list. It's a grown-up gift list. There are some really cool grand prizes on there, including an espresso machine that our sports director, Jimmy Akuska, if you happen to be the one who wins that, he will track you down. He wants it very, very badly. However, every day we have 4 giveaways for either a hard cash money prize of $100 or an overnight stay at Chula Vista. In this hour, that code word is season. 'Tis the season to get some gifts. That is SEASON. Text that in for a chance to win an overnight stay at Chula Vista. That code word is good for the rest of this 4 o'clock hour, so get on it. Text in through the Civic Media app for this statewide contest.
There you go. And yeah, we're back though too. It is sadly the day after a school shooting, and again. And the first half hour we had the executive director and co-founder of Teachers Unified to End Gun Violence, Abby Clements, also survivor of the Sandy Hook horrendous massacre, their second grade teacher at the time, but now sadly doing this incredibly important work. We were talking a lot, what can we do? And I want to continue to have that conversation. Of course, too, if you have another direction, love to hear about it. 855-752-4842. Keith from Broadhead. Keith, you've been holding on there. We appreciate it. Keith, what's happening?
Good afternoon, Dr. Tim. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing okay, but I hate doing this show.
Not the Dom Salvia show.
No, not the Dom Salvia show. You know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I know what you mean. So my question is, if, as she said, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking her name already. She was just on with you. If they can literally trace back between 86 and 89% of these guns to where the person responsible, the owner of the gun, maybe it's time to start charging them with involuntary manslaughter or reckless use of a firearm or something under those terms. I mean, if you're not going to take the responsibility for an item that you purchased that is a deadly weapon, obviously that's why you have them. I'm a hunter myself. I have several shotguns and so forth. I never keep them loaded. The shells are in a separate room from the guns, and they're all locked up in different cases. And it's not that dang hard.
Right. Right.
If they can't take the responsibility for that, then maybe it's time to start charging them.
Well, Keith, I think we're going to see that. And in fact, the last two, the parents are being, charged in this ability, right, Jess? I mean,
indeed. Yeah. It is a case. Okay, go ahead.
No, go. It is, and it's something we do need to do. It's one of those things that we can. And so, putting forward these ideas of going, let's stop this from happening. Okay, we've put in place, school shooter drills, bulletproof backpacks, bulletproof glass. You name it, school resource officers, they're all there. Okay. All right. Now let's do the things that stop this from happening. And Joe from Madison on the line, talk about something going on in Michigan. Michigan has a safe storage law. Joe, how are you?
Good. And thanks to Keith for what he had to say, and as a hunter and how he does his storage of his weapons and ammo was interesting to me, that he takes such care to make sure that they're as safe as can be. Michigan has a law. It's called the Safe Storage Law, and it says adults can be charged with a misdemeanor if a kid gains access to a firearm that was improperly stored. But it increases to felony charges if the child injures or kills someone with a firearm, and all the way to if you have a gun that's improperly stored and a child under your purview commits a death is caused because of that, it is a Class C felony with a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison. Now, I bring this up because I had friends of friends were describing a family in which this came to a head. The law had just recently passed. The grandparents were taking care of kids, and they left guns around. One of the children killed a cousin, and the fur was flying over this, and both of the grandparents were charged, and both of the grandparents received sentences. I don't know if it was the full 15 years, but it was up there. It was a felony conviction and 15 years. And what struck me from it, Tim, was that this family, obviously they were ruined because of what happened here, but they were also legally and financially ruined. These grandparents, after they were done paying the lawyers and spending the time in jail, and they lost their home, they lost their pensions, they lost a ton. So I was curious if other people, hunters and others who are gun aficionados within the listening area, what their thoughts would be about this. Does this seem like it would work? Does this seem like a way to do this? Or if you feel that one of the reasons why you have a gun is, in case of intruders, to make yourself feel safe, does this fact that you have to, take the gun out of this case and add this or add the ammo, does that make you less safe? I would be really interested in hearing what people had to say. So thanks a lot.
Wow, thank you, Joe. Yeah, great question there. Because just Joe brings up the point where somebody's saying, but if it's locked up and I can't get to it, I can't protect myself.
Right.
Right. And so, okay. If that's the case, well, Joe put it out there, 855-752-4842. We'd like to hear from you to talk about that, because I gotta think that the reality is that if you have a gun and you have children, that means, yes, people 17 and under in that household. The fact that we would put together a law like it sounds like they have in Michigan that says, well, sorry, you now have children in the premises, you have to lock up that firearm. Is that too much? Too much that your safety is that much at risk that you're saying, no, I would rather risk my child getting access to this gun and causing a horrendous, horrific tragedy in my house, because my need and my right to protect myself has to override the fact that there could be a gun incident in my house, and God forbid a student finds that gun and takes it to school, like what seems to have happened here in Madison. A gun available in the home, and it gets and finds its way into school. We want to stop this.
We do. And we just got a text. Todd from De Pere says that they make fingerprint safes where you can keep loaded guns. He says that he has several, including one mounted on his nightstand. Yeah, so that's one of those cases that sort of solves it, where it's not something that you have to input a complicated lock in order to get your gun out. It's just a fingerprint scan. Maybe that's a good solution. That's a good halfway point. But when you're talking about trying to find the balance between having your gun, if the primary reason that you have the gun is not for hunting, but for, self-defense, for feeling safe in your home, well, the statistics show that having a gun in the house is actually usually the greater threat. That there are far more injuries and deaths that relate from having a gun in the house, whether it's for self-defense or any other purpose, than something like a home invasion.
Yeah, the reality there, Jess, I'm glad you brought this up, because then you say, and Johnny Lupinacci, my co-host for BustED Pencils, sadly, whenever this happens, we always have to do a show on school shootings, and we typically have somebody say, but I need my protection, I need it in my house. But the statistic of having a weapon in your house when children are around, or even yourself, the reality that gun will be used as for protection. Sorry, the statistics show that gun will end up being in some form used in some accident and or intentionally to inflict some type of pain and suffering, if not death, in the house, dealing with the people who live in that house and the relatives. And so the reality of a gun to protect you, to be safe in your home, actually putting that gun in your home dramatically increases your odds that something bad is going to happen to you or your family with that gun. And so, it's it's a statistic, it's a fact, it's not fake news, it's the reality. I'm Dr. Tim Slekar, sitting in for Dom during the Dom Salvia show. Sadly, it is the day after a school shooting. First half hour, we had our guest, Abby Clements, executive director and co-founder of Teachers Unified to End Gun Violence, and also survivor of a school shooting, Sandy Hook, and the work that their organization does, and pointing out the realities here that, sadly, her job seems to be that she continues to do these shows, whether it's TV or a radio show, to talk about the communities and where this happens. One of the things that I had pointed out and asked Abby, though, too, as we were kind of coming down to the end, is that in this moment, in this situation, how do we now help in the communities here? Because from now on, anybody associated with the school shooting in Madison, this is their reality. They're living. There's trauma. And so, I'm a neighbor. I want to be in a supportive position. What is it that I can do? What is it that I shouldn't do? And it really appreciated Abby's point that to just make sure that everybody involved knows you're always available, truly available. And let me know if you need something.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, that part.
That puts it on the other person to then come up with not only the things that they need or want, but then to reach the activation energy of saying that to someone and asking for help. That's hard, man. Especially when you're already seriously struggling.
Yeah, and so that's it, right? I think whenever we do that, hey, let me know if I can help. It's not because we're intentionally trying to just throw it on them. It's just almost kind of like a cliche thing that we say. But here in this moment, okay, no. What can I do? What can I do? And as Abby pointed out, and constantly checking in with your neighbors and your friends and your family members who have gone through this, to always be asking, what can I do? Making that be that we now, we as the community members that have to live after a school shooting, how is it that we're going to respond in a way that can be helpful? I know we can have in these moments going like, there's nothing else we can do. Well, first thing we can do is make sure that we are there for the survivors, because it's a long road. And as Abby was pointing out, it's actually a road that won't ever end. It's Dr. Tim Slekar sitting in for Dom Salvia. The number is 855-752-4842. One more little segment here for this hour. Cindy from Appleton, yes, should be alternative to prison. We'll talk about that. And Annie from Watertown. We'll get to your text when we get back.
Text in season for that text to win. There are several fundraisers that have been set up to support the school and the people who have been directly involved. I will text them to you now.
Okay. Yeah, good catch on it. I was thinking, I'm like, there's got to be something set up locally already.
Yeah, I just sent a link to the United Way of Dane County's fundraiser that they're doing. And there's a short Civic Media article that I can link as well into the podcast.
Okay.
Coming back in 20 seconds.
No callers waiting, right?
2 callers, Cindy and Annie.
Oh, those are callers waiting. Okay. Welcome back. The Dom Salvia Show. I'm Dr. Tim Slekar sitting in for Dom. While he's away, gets a little bit of a break. Sadly, though, here we are the day after a school shooting again, Madison, Wisconsin. And, we had the very first half hour, very special guest, the executive director and co-founder of Teachers Unify to End Gun Violence, Abby Clements, also the survivor of the Sandy Hook massacre. She was a second grade teacher at that time. We left the last segment. We were talking about, what can we do in this situation? And we moved in the direction of to support our neighbors and our friends and our family members that are dealing with this tragedy. And the number one thing that we heard from Abby is to persistently be available, and to be available with the what can I do, not the let me know if you need me.
Right.
Right. And see here too that United Way Dane County, go to their website, Abundant Life Christian School Emergency Recovery Fund. So United Way of Dane County stands ready to support the children and families and educators affected by the tragic shooting at Abundant Life Christian School. If you go to that, you can see where you can make a monetary donation. And again, that's helping. Yes. You know what? Sometimes, cash helps. And
Absolutely.
it can be used in any ways. And 2 more callers. Cindy from Appleton. Cindy, you got some comments here. What's happening?
Well, I'm not an advocate for prison. And like one of your callers said earlier, the parents of this young girl, again, if they end up in prison, then who takes care of their children? They lose their jobs. They lose their house. To me, that makes no sense. They should have to do several years of community service, including going into schools and churches, talking about why you should not leave your guns accessible to your children. Also, they should have to pay for some of the funeral expenses for the family who's their child killed. I mean, these are options that can be done. If they don't have the money, then their wages get garnished. But I just don't advocate putting more people in prison, because that really does not solve the problem. This is a bigger problem than what we're talking about here, and we need to start with mental health issues, like you say, community support. And I mean, people are getting shot and killed every day. Why don't we have several public service announcements every day about locking up your guns, keeping your guns safe, whatever? We don't hear that kind of stuff. Why not? When people hear things like that over and over and over again, it starts to take hold.
Yeah. All right, Cindy, thank you so much. Yeah, I putting everybody right away in prison. Cindy, good points there. What are the implications then of that, of the families that are there? I'll talk more about that. Annie from Waterton, you're on the Dom Salvia Show. What's happening, Annie? Annie? Oh, well,
all right, we'll come back to Annie.
Yeah, we'll come back.
In the meantime,
just do it.
If you're listening to us on the Civic Media app, which you certainly should be for crystal clear quality and the ability to text or call in with a single button push, you can participate right now in our Text to Win contest. There are 4 minutes left in this hour's giveaway for a stay at Chula Vista. The code word is season. It is the season almost of winter, depending on which calendar you follow. Season, SEASON. Text that in now. You have 4 minutes remaining for your chance to win that stay, as well as to be entered for one of our 8 grand prizes.
Thinking of this season, but the Australia listeners, it's a different season for them.
It's a different season. They're still in a season, though.
Right. Any luck with Annie there, Jess? Or
Annie, you here? Can you hear us?
I'm here.
There
you are. Hey, Annie, how are you?
Yeah, doing stuff around the house, juggling things, and must have hit the wrong button. Why I don't carry a gun. I'm reminded of Dom and Crude having a guy from the Gun Society on, and I really have to wonder about, this whole country, but part of this faction of people who are so devoted to their guns. And they were interviewing this guy, asking him about him carrying his gun here and there and on. And he had kids in his house. And I think, boy, what if somebody else's kids visit him? But as they were talking, I'm thinking, well, what does he do? Carry it around the kitchen, the house with him? And then they asked him, and yes, he carries the gun around on his hip at home in everyday life.
Oh my God.
And I just have to wonder what is wrong with people that they need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Annie, I mean, think about that. It's like, wow, really, you're packing in your house with your second grader and your fourth grader because, there is an insanity here. And with the guns and the over the top, the whole conceal and carry laws just make me absolutely frightened. And I think there should be, your right to protect yourself and your right to carry your gun. I'm sorry, but I did not give up my right to safety. I'm a citizen of this country, and I have a right to safety. I have a right to do those things like going to the grocery store and going out, and kids and teachers have a right. They should have a constant, current, always expectation that school is the place where the world and the pain and the suffering of the world doesn't enter. Man. Dr. Tim Slekar sitting in for Dom Salvia. Got another hour coming up, and special guest, Educators Amplified, Joanna Rosado joining us. And hey, make sure you give us a call if you want to jump in. The number's 855-752-4842. Back after the break.
Hello, Joanna.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I don't have my regular setup.
I see that.
I'm just in the middle of a bunch of things. My daughter's coming home from college. Whatever. I'm cooking while I'm on the show.
Oh,
So
of course.
I feel like I've got to be like near the stove. So I hope it's okay.
It's okay with us if it's okay with you.
It's okay with me. Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear our first hour?
I did not. I just got home.
Okay.
But anyway, are we
I want
continuing
to come back and well, I gotta have Teacher Joanna's, sense and reactions to this. And then, if it feels like the opportunity, we can pivot to that test score debacle that you sent me. Just put up I put a kind of reaction blog on Civic Media, taking apart the author of that piece. So
Yep. And right, I'm sure it'll be my similar, but that's okay, like responses and reactions or things that so no, what did the gal before me talk largely about?
Just what are we doing to make this end? Sadly in her position, traumatic enough that she's a survivor of, Sandy Hook, but that her organization is needed and that she has to do shows like this,
Mm-hmm.
and just,
Yes.
and stopping to talk about how we protect kids and make them safe, backpacks, instead of going like, let's do some things to stop this from happening.
Yeah.
Instead of minimizing the death toll.
Yeah.
We kind of looked at it from that standpoint and going, when you're doing that, your expectation is, I can't do anything to make it stop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and I kind of think I don't totally, again, whatever, in Milwaukee, with youth gun violence, we just think about conflict resolution skills, or like, I can speak a little bit about like
yeah,
this group that I'm involved with, that's with Marquette and the Medical College of Wisconsin, whatever, and
yeah,
just kind of some of these same things, that it's the number one killer.
mm-hmm,
Well, it stems from conflict,
mm-hmm,
right? And so if we back way up, anyway. But
yeah.
I don't speak as like an MPS employee on the air. I'm speaking as myself.
You are Joanna Rosado of Educators Amplified. Teacher Joanna.
Yeah.
We're helping Dom out for the evening.
Yeah.
But no, she was sadly a really good guest, because she's obviously done this way too much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And but we did invite her, and she's excited. We're gonna actually have her back for a full, BustED Pencils interview.
So she was a teacher at Sandy Hook?
She was a second grade teacher. She said, spent that whole time with the kids in the closet huddled. And then when they told her it was time to go, she's just grabbed them and ran. And, she just said, though, sadly, the peripheral vision, she saw everything.
And so now she's in advocacy work?
Yeah, and she's still a teacher, and she's with AFT.
Oh, she's still actively teaching. Wow.
Yeah, she's not teaching there anymore in that, but it was that connection that we made last week to AFT and Randy, that she's actually, her and Randy put out that, I sent you that statement.
I'm wondering too, if when you have her on, like what kind of support those teachers got. I was at a conference this summer with teachers from Uvalde. And that was pretty, same vein of just like, wow. I don't know. And so we were talking a bit about like, I don't know, supports all around, like what kind of supports
2 minutes.
teachers.
Yeah, and that was the kind of thing I kind of left her with, though, too, was, in this moment of, what can I do? And again, not outside of stopping the gun violence, but how do I support, friends, families that are now that they've gone through this. And her big answer, she's like, first of all, don't have nearly enough time to talk about that, but the biggest thing is to constantly insist that you're there to help, and to not say, let me know what you need.
Right.
Yeah,
I know, because then that puts the onus on that person.
Yep.
It's like me being a mom and being like, whatever, if I have to tell you, it's not that much help.
right.
Or me with my husband, it's like, if I have to make the list, then that's, anyway, I get it.
Yeah,
Just saying that you're there for people, and that just whatever, being available
and to constantly be available.
Okay.
So, but that would be, what I'd like to have her on BustED Pencils, though, is to really talk about their organization and the work they do.
Right, because it's through the AFT then. So she's an active teacher, and then there's this subset of the AFT that is like,
well, this Teachers Unified to End Gun Violence is its own organization, but I guess AFT now is really heavily involved. In fact, she said right after, Sandy Hook, AFT was right there, right from the very beginning, and AFT has always been kind of a partner with her.
Okay.
15.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
Not really. It's Dr. Tim Slekar, yes, from BustED Pencils, sitting in for Dom. You know, Dom's taking a little break, so everybody.
Yeah, I suppose he deserves it.
He deserves it, but Jess, Civic Media, got some stuff going on that you want to tell the listeners about?
Not anymore.
Oh, that's right. The hour's over.
The hour's over. You'll have to tune back in tomorrow at 4 p.m. to catch the next code word from the Dom Salvia Show. Stick around, though, because I think there's one more.
Okay,
in the day,
so
unless I'm forgetting.
Yeah, we hope not. Second hour Dom Salvia Show, beginning though, and here we are, the day after a school shooting, and we had guest Abby Clements from Teachers Unified to End Gun Violence, also a survivor of the Sandy Hook shooting. She was a second grade teacher at that time, helping us talk about this moment. And here we are again. And I am so thankful, though, too, to have my best friend, colleague, teacher Joanna from Educators Amplified, BustED Pencils listeners. Yes, it's that teacher Joanna, always on with us on the show. Teacher Joanna, how are you?
I'm great, and it's really exciting to be on the Dom Salvia Show today.
Yeah, right. It's like, it's not welcome back to BustED Pencil. It's the Dom Salvia Show.
I'm really proud of you,
Hello.
Tim. We haven't had any of that.
I haven't done any. Yeah, I haven't done any of the what. Oh no, but it is. So,
Teacher hello, larger audience. Hello.
Teacher Joanna, though. So, you're here. You did today, the day after, in your. What do you think? I mean, your thoughts yesterday when you heard, and
well, every time it is extreme. It's shocking. So yes, it does still shock me. It is shocking, and it's sad, and it's maddening, and my first reaction actually yesterday, I mean, there's the emotions, right? The reaction, but then it was to reach out to the brand new teachers that I know and check on them. And so in particular, my son's girlfriend is a brand new teacher in the Madison area.
Okay.
It's her first year. And so I was sure to reach out to her because just it's scary, and it's I don't know, but I thought of the young people I know, and so it's my son's girlfriend, his roommate, some of the teachers that I mentor here. So that just happened to be my first thing, was to go check on people. Definitely.
With that though, too, right? I mean, thinking about that, yeah, the first year teacher, but you're not a first year teacher, and you said though you're still shocked.
I am, because
I hate to say that's a good thing, but I'm glad you're still shocked.
Yeah, I am. I mean, because it's a major thing every time it happens. So I don't think I'll ever get hardened to it. And quite honestly, I just think of the massive amounts of pain surrounding it, before, during, after. So yeah, no, I'm not. Yes, I'm shocked. So sorry, I don't have, it's almost like that's all I can say.
Right. Well, and you're still shocked, but I mean, reaching out to those first year teachers, particularly
Yeah.
like you just said, it's, because yeah, it is a reality. It's a sad reality. And so what is their feeling there? One of the things we were talking about in the first hour though was just the statistics on guns in the home and not being locked up, and the fact that they end up in some way, shape, or form usually 86% was the statistic from Abby of the school shootings. Those guns came from the home of a family member with that. And so we were talking about, should we be locking the guns up? Should we be required to lock them up? And I had started moving in the direction of going, I could hear somebody saying, but I need my gun for protection, and if it's locked up, I can't get to it. We had a caller kind of point out that, well, was it? Yeah, talking about, a safe, you could put your fingerprint and boom, it's right next to you. So there's your protection. But Matt from Middleton's on the phone. Matt, you got a comment on this point of why might people feel the need to have a gun? Matt, welcome to the Dom Salvia show.
Hey guys, thanks for what you do. I grew up in a high crime city, Miami, Florida, in the 80s, and heard gunshots once in a while in class, coming from outside and stuff. And I grew up still not feeling a need to arm myself, but I find it strange that I think there's a political side to this, because my parents live out in the country here in Wisconsin, and they'll hear from rural people that they do as much as they can to not go near the city. They see the city as dangerous and scary. And it's right in line with the idea that Democrats are evil because they kill babies. There's like a political side to that where they want people to be afraid of each other in America. And I think that might feed into some of this, because and a lot of these people that are hoarding guns are these kind of frightened white men, so to speak, that there's like a gun obsession, but also a need to just arm themselves for some coming apocalypse or whatever their church is telling them. I don't know where they're getting these things, but living in Texas for a while, I lived in Texas 10 years, and I was at a house where there were guns laying around and they had kids. So yeah, it's complicated, but I think some political things there where they want us to fear each other.
No, Matt, I think what you point out there.
I understand it, but it's.
Yeah, no, Matt, I mean, the culture of fear that really is running out there, the need, I feel the need to protect myself, and then to really put some deep analysis to that. Do you, and why do you feel that way? Because, if you can potentially rationalize that down to the fact that you're not a frontline soldier in the Ukraine, you might come down with a conclusion that, yeah, I don't really need this, but what is it that led me to have that feeling? And then that kind of adds to it. Joanna, what are you thinking there?
Well, I think about, clearly access is too easy for children. And so if we step away from ourselves as adults, how do we view it for children? Because the issue here that we're talking about is that children have too easy of access, right? And also that it has become the number one killer of children, gun violence. And so I wonder, when the focus might switch to children in a way, and what we can do, regardless of how we feel and the habits we have, and our strong opinions about, ownership. I view this as kind of a different issue. There's that issue, and then there's the issue of just, are our children in our communities safe due to gun violence?
Due to gun violence, due to the what's easy access. Matt pointed out living in Texas, being in the home where guns were laying around, was what Matt said, in a home where there were children. And somebody going, well, that's rare. I don't know if that's rare or not. I could,
No, I don't think it's rare. I mean, we have there's all kinds of accidental shootings.
right.
But right, even if I weren't just focused on the really terrible outcome, it's just this idea that, you know, there's evidence here that something's not right
Mm,
and that it's having a harmful effect on our kids. And
right.
so what are we willing to do about that?
Well, and that's the part. What are we willing to do about that? Because sadly, the conversation seems to very quickly turn into, well, were the escape routes planned? Were the protections set up?
Mm,
Did the bulletproof glass work? It's like, well,
mhm.
okay, wait.
I know. I did read, I read something today where, of course, someone from the school, an administrator, teacher, I can't remember, saying like, "Oh, the kids did magnificent," and I also remember from Uvalde, the children did so well at being quiet that,
Yeah,
right? Remember, almost 400 police officers showed up there
right.
and didn't realize that people were in the rooms.
Mm.
And so, this idea that kids are really great at these trainings, again, it's hard to contend with because it's like, okay, great. So you were happy that the children are really good during an active shooter situation. Like in a school, I really want to be celebrating so much more than that, but it's a sad reality.
It's it's a sad reality, and we point out though too is that there's an acceptance that
Mhm,
when you have those conversations, that there's nothing you can do to stop
mhm,
it,
mhm,
and that's the part where we want to come at this and go, no,
mhm,
schools are, quote, safe enough right now. Now it's time to stop it. And what are those
mhm,
things that we can do? Not think about, theorize, wish philosophically. What are the hard, concrete things we can do? And something very simple is enforcing the if you have a gun in the house and you have children in the house, that access to that gun has to be in the unavailability, the that a child can't get to that gun, and we have to enforce that, because that right there, 86% of the guns used that we heard from Abby talking about this, they came from the house of the family of the origin where that started. So, hey, it is Dr. Tim Slekar sitting in for Dom Salvia. Teacher Joanna is here with me from Educators Amplified, and Mark from the SAC. We see you. We'll get you right when we get back. Yeah, Jess, we'll take Mark's comment.
yeah, and what do you want to pivot to?
Well, I think we'll make that pivot to, okay, now, Teacher Joanna, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in schools and the realities, and then we'll kind of
Mhm.
make that move to so proficiency. That's an
Mm, well,
interesting word.
right. I mean, I don't know that I have a ton to say about that, but I guess because I guess it goes though to both. It's fine. It
No,
goes to both issues. Like lately, like you said, I've been feeling like I don't really want to talk about what students need to do or what teachers need to do.
mm,
You know what I mean? I want to talk about that larger system,
yeah.
like the what do we need to do? And that can go in any of these cases. Like I
Well,
said,
it can go on. Yeah, I can do that, and
the safety, the well-being, the
yeah.
what is our function.
But sadly, in one way though, the system continues to make us have conversations about effing proficiency.
Mhm.
and in fact, this whole conversation is again, as maybe this is the way you can bring it in when we do this is, maybe this whole conversation is kind of just a symptom of a sick system.
Mm-hmm.
We can make that. So I see you've got
30
Mark.
seconds.
Mark typically will ramble, so just be ready to cut him when he kind of makes a point, and then we'll get to Carrie, and then we'll kind of make some kind of a pivot announcement. Because I'm sure there's only one Mark from the SAC. Oh, thanks, Jess. There we are. It's the Dom Salvia Show. Dr. Tim Slekar, BustED Pencils, sitting in, joined by my really special friend, teacher Joanna from Educators Amplified. Still talking about the day after school shooting. It's a horrible conversation. We don't want to continue to keep having it. What can we do to stop having it? Definitely, though, want to get to callers. Mark from Prairie du Sac. Mark, what's happening? You got some comments on, we need to not be frightened. Tell me more about that.
We need to give up fear. Because fear is, the Gwen put it in Left Hand of Darkness. She referred to it, fire and fear, good servants but bad masters. And I'm afraid we're letting our fears master itself. And get the full context of the comment that J.D. Vance made back during the campaign. Well, school shootings are, just a fact of life. And he apparently said, well, he didn't like it, that he didn't like it. But we just have to admit that school shootings are a fact of life. And I just think that's one fact of life we need to nip in the bud.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. That's it, and that's what we're talking about. Going, no, it's not a fact of life we have to get used to. It's a fact of life that needs to not be a fact anymore. When Vice President-elect Vance just proudly not proudly, I don't think, but proclaims it's a fact of life, and we got to get on with it. And no, you know what? Yes, we know we have to do what we can. But Jess, tuberculosis was also a fact of life. Jess,
how did you pronounce that?
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis. I'm sorry, Hey, I'm originally from Pittsburgh.
Sure, blame it on Pittsburgh.
But we want to stop it. And that's what we're saying. We've at this point we've done all of the protection safety plans. We've done it enough. That's it. So now it's what are we going to do to stop it? And we need to insist on that. And, you think about that. These are the conversations that we want to be having, is saying, no, well, this fact of life then needs to change, because this is a fact of life we're not willing to accept. And therefore, we, the people listening to this show out there who have the ability, talking to our elected officials, not even talking to them, demanding them that they move away from the multiple amounts of money that make them vote in favor of keeping our children and our teachers in a state of constant fear. No, that's unacceptable. You have to listen to me. I voted for you, not the moneyed interests that are trying to keep you in a state that just says we have to accept this as a fact. Had a little rant there. Carrie, though. Oh, we can also announce we have a winner from the Text to Win. Jess, you want to do that?
Yeah, Carrie from Tosa. Congratulations on winning an overnight stay at Chula Vista. Have an amazing time. And if you want to get in on that, tomorrow, 4 p.m., tune in, hear another word, get another chance.
Nice. Appreciate that. So yeah, Joanna, it's time. It's time to stop it.
Yeah, but you know what? Also hearing you talk, I do think that it's also though a big leap in a way of, you know, I just think there's a part of turning inward with all of this too,
Mm.
and each of us asking ourselves what we can do and what we're doing to understand even I guess our own biology, I always bring it back to like
Yeah,
the
you do.
biology of the brain. and um and I think that's why I said earlier too that I do continue to be shocked because there is a level of need for all of us that I just don't see get addressed in our largest society and institutions. And that's just that kind of, again, understanding what brings people to a
Mm.
point like this. And then how do we heal and recover and repair from situations rather than just saying like somebody somewhere better make it stop.
Mm.
Um, so that was just going through my head, the
Yeah.
whole like it is a little complex and
Mhm.
how I think what is manageable is what is what's within each of us. And yeah, so again, I know that sounds like my floofy flu.
No. I don't think it's foo at all. I mean, yeah, I'm going to take this hard line on. We need to make it stop. The other
Yep.
part though, too, but you also point out another really important point though, too, is what are those things that are driving,
Mhm.
people to become a quote school shooter?
Mhm.
Um, that is, are we willing to look deep inward to say, are there things so that we can do to stop somebody from going into the mental state that takes them to that level? And I think the answer is on that one too is yes.
Yeah.
If
Well, I
we're
just think that,
willing.
right, there's external things and there's internal things, and we've gotta do both.
Mm-hmm. Numbers 855-752-4842. Dr. Tim Slekar sitting in for Dom on the Dom Salvia show. Special friend, teacher Joanna from Educators Amplified. Time to move on, though, Joanna. It's just too much thinking about this, but, another question, though. When I say the word proficiency, kind of helping that,
Mm.
what does proficiency mean?
I know, you've been asking that question for a long time. We've got a long, storied relationship with this word.
Yes, we do, because and if you think you know what proficiency means, jump right in for the show because I want to hear it from somebody else out there. Proficiency 855-752-4842. Dr. Tim Slekar sitting in for Dom. We'll be right back. I'm texting, sorry.
No, that's same. We're mega multitasking here today.
Yeah. Enough. I did this whole though. The one of the things though too, Joanna, that piece, it was it the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but yeah.
And was written by a Tressa Pankovitz.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta understand, where is what point of view is it that point makes her write this piece? And it's
Wow.
because actually, moving the proficiency description down takes away her weaponization of assessment to create school failure that would lead to more privatization and charterization, of which she's an advocate of.
Yeah, and I was hoping you could speak more too, but maybe you can't. And again, that's why I'm like, I don't know if you really want to. There's a lot to dig here, but Diane Ravitch has just been so clear about like what NAEP is and what NAEP isn't.
Right.
Um,
It's it's aspirational. In the
right.
proficiency and aspirational need to go together, and that we need to have, in one way, grade level. And then we're gonna be having a guest we're gonna interview in tomorrow, the one I sent you, with Design to Fail, where he would point out that even what we call grade level is a stupid way to classify kids, because it assumes that all kids should be at a certain point, when the reality of learning is not really age and stage necessarily contingent.
Well, and so many these assessments now are generally online, and we've been, I would just say anecdotal, but I've probably proven somewhere issues with that.
Mhm.
So again, I don't.
Well, it's just to say, and for me too, this conversation takes our eye off of the ball of the reality of going, what is it that we will really want to do to make
Yeah.
schools, because this continues to keep us in this conversation that continues to just talk about school as an academic enterprise exclusively.
That, and I just am like, if folks understood the number of products, like to me, test just means product. You know
Right.
what I mean? And it's just, there's this whole just like product focus that myself as a real educator am not buying into or never have. Again, you don't see
1 minute.
groups of educators being like, and this is the test that tells us everything. Like, no, it's just, I've been in education for 30 years. It's never happened. So at this point, it's just like something outside of me. But I can see that it still has a real hold on the public.
And we have 30 years to also look at it this way. Back to your, what do new teachers who have grown up under a system of assessment, do they have?
It's similar. It's this thing
20
that people
seconds.
think we have to accept.
Yeah.
I would say it's like, it's similar. It's something people feel they have to accept, but we could ask the question again.
Save it for the air. 10 seconds.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I do know this is the Dom Salvia show, and I am Dr. Tim Slekar from BustED Pencils, sitting in while Dom takes a little break. My favorite guest co-host, though, Educators Amplified teacher Joanna, is with me. And, enough is enough with the school shooting. Moving on to something, where, a little bit of a BustED Pencils topic, but at the same time, something we should be out there. There was a piece Teacher Joanna, you made me aware of in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Wisconsin parents deserve truth about their children's academic progress. This was submitted by Tressa Pankovitz. We'll get more into, her background, but the reality that she kind of comes in here is that DPI under Jill Underley's leadership took what we call the NAEP scores and the qualitative classifications of how you're performing on the NAEP tests, which are achievement tests, typically 4th, 8th grade math and reading. And there's the proficiency is the word that NAEP uses as the top, the very best that you can get on a NAEP administered test. And at one point, Wisconsin's scores on the forward exam were somehow calibrated to be in line with the NAEP metrics. And so that when you say proficiency on a forward exam, that has the same connection to the proficiency on the NAEP. And Joe Underley and DPI said, wait a minute, we need to expand that because, and there's a really good reason, is that NAEP proficiency is aspirational. Teacher Joanna, you reminded me of this. Dr. Diane Ravitch reminds us this all the time, that when you're talking about NAEP, those qualities that go into that, particularly this word proficiency is aspirational. It is not grade level. So when you hear somebody out there saying only 1/3 of Wisconsin students are proficient, there's the assumption
on this specific test,
on this specific, right,
on this specific measure.
1/3. So typically, though, then 2/3 of Wisconsin students are not proficient. And so, my God, grab the pearls, clutch them tight, because the world is coming to an end. 2/3 of students in Wisconsin can't read, is what that turns into.
Yes. And my understanding of this too is that for whatever reason, I guess the Wisconsin proficiency levels were set according to NAEP. And then they recognized that wasn't an accurate measure because the forward exam is based on Wisconsin state standards,
yes,
which are generated and created by groups of Wisconsin educators. So the forward exam here in Wisconsin is generated by, like I said, by teachers in the field, diverse people throughout the state. And so the forward exam is not based on any kind of NAEP standards. It's based on the Wisconsin state standards. And so that is the reason for the shift, saying we were using this tool that actually didn't measure what we're doing. But oh my gosh, I feel bad even giving that much airtime to that. In terms of that I was recently reading something, again, back to my brain-based stuff, from Dr. Bruce Perry, who's, really known for his work around neurobiology and its impact on children. And he was talking about how, actually observing children does the best job rather than any kind of measure or even brain scans. He's like when we scan, their brains for like what's lighting up and this and that, like nothing is going to give you anything more accurate than to that child, like actual observation. And so I think about that with our general, testing culture. Let's say that let's keep in mind that any test nowadays is pretty much computer driven. You know what I mean? And so there's something right there. It's one measure on one day. And but we really gets a lot of press, or it's a thing that people like to talk about. And I will say, like I said, as a near 30-year educator, I have so tuned out on the products. But
Well,
Anyway, in
that's a
particular.
whole other
Mhm.
direction we can go. You know, coming back to this though, too, the author of that piece, though, it has a real problem with the adjustment that DPI made, and to state this very simply, because the adjustment now shows more kids in Wisconsin are doing better,
Oh, we don't
and
want that,
yeah.
do we?
Wow, that sounds awful. Make 'em
Gosh,
worse.
wait a minute. We've got numbers out there that say our kids are not so bad. And darn it, we want that old metric back in place that classifies kids more as failing, because nothing is going to stop a kid and a teacher from failing more than pointing it out, labeling them, making them march through the streets with their failed tests around their necks, because that is the way you create better learning situations. I'm sorry, but no. And so, I really come back to, again, this piece from the author, and I'm going to just scroll down to the very end there to kind of get Tressa Pankovich. She's co-director of Reinventing Schools Project at Progressive Policy Institute, blah, 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 blah. Take a look at that. And actually, this is an organization that advocates for the privatization and charterization of public schools. And how does that happen? That happens when we label schools as failing. And the quickest way to label schools failing is to hold that word proficiency and point out and yell, scream, and let everyone know that 2/3 of your students are not proficient. And therefore, guess what? We in the charter privatization world, we're here to help. We're here to help. And that is too. And so pointing that out, I wanted to make that just part of that. And, you can see actually my reactions. Go to the Civic Media website. I have a blog post up there right now that really takes some time to help people understand what's happening here. Because Joanna, as you just pointed out, if you really want to know, and remember, I came early on in learning to be a teacher, as you said, back in the 80s, we knew then that the number one way that you could tell how a child was doing was watching them and sitting with them and interacting with them. You want the most accurate gauge of how things are going? Spend time with them.
I actually had a friend recently talk about how her daughter had just recently been diagnosed with having dyslexia, but and she's maybe in 4th or 5th grade now, but it had gone unnoticed all this time because the assessments are online and because the writing she does autocorrects. So because there wasn't enough of assessment of people literally sitting with and watching, this was overlooked and not able. And again, and I don't fault the system and I don't fault the teachers. Like, this is kind of what,
Right.
this, the expectation is, or how testing now occurs. So, I mean, right. There's nothing better than, like, again, because it's going to be a number of things, right? There's a number. When you get one measure, you get one observation, you're like, oh, I don't know if they're getting this. Then you throw something else, right? And then you're like, no, but they get this part, but not this part. You need multiple measures.
You do. And you made me think of that though too, and in the reality of how much weight though and trust those quote test scores garner. When ask any teacher who might go, you know what, I know that's what he or she scored on that test, but that's not what I see in class. And the reality of that professional judgment, observation, skill, expertise in this era, let's talk about it, since early 2000, No Child Left Behind era. No, that doesn't qualify as a legitimate assessment. We don't care what you see. We don't care how you interpret the child. We need objective measures, high stakes tests, and think about that and going like, whoa.
I just when I do think about it, I think about how many problems it caused.
Yeah.
When I was doing a really like standardized online program, um, it caused so many problems. It literally on a specific day would tell a kid they were a 12th grade reading level. Then the next day it'd tell them they were a 3rd grade reading level. I mean, there's just so many variables. Again, and one of them being the actual child, right? And like I just and I found that it caused problems for the child themselves, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they then either thought they were like doing way better than they were or way worse than they were. It caused problems with communicating to the family what was really going on because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times parents do link children's poor performance to just effort. And so when kids were, for whatever reason, just getting a bad score because of all these different variables, likely not actually due to their skill level, but then the parent would be like, why aren't you trying?
Yeah.
And I just, yes, it's so much, it's the real deal, first of all. Like if you went to your doctor and they were just like, okay, go sit on the computer over there and do some things, and then they looked at just that, not like a blood scan, but they just were like, hey, go sit on the computer and answer those questions. And then they were like completing their whole diagnosis and treatment plan for you based on that, right?
Right.
You want to be looked at. You want to be asked questions. You want maybe somebody else to give their opinion. It's the same of what we need to be supporting and advocating in schools. And you are right, since the early 2000s, when products really came heavily in to make sure everything was Common Core aligned, we really lost a lot of that, and we need to return to it.
Yeah, producer Jess, I see you in animated there as we're talking.
Yeah, well, just thinking about this comparison that teacher Joanna has just made of imagine going to a doctor's appointment and the survey that you take at the beginning, the paper screening, if that was it, putting in your family history and maybe a couple symptoms that you've been experiencing, and that's it. From there, they're making the whole treatment plan. That does feel equivalent because that's taking a little tiny snapshot. It's not looking at the complete situation. It's not getting a multidimensional view of what's going on. It gives you such a flat read of something that can never be accurate, that can never lead to growth and continued sustainable being.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jess. Yes.
It is, and that's it. We want to make sure that everybody understands that. Because if you're out there and you're really concerned about how are the kids doing in school, and we saw this piece in the Milwaukee Journal, and my goodness, so many kids are failing, or maybe we don't know anymore. Come on, let's stop. Let's stop it. And again, come back to what I pointed out here too. Who wrote the piece and what interest do they have in writing that piece and creating fear and skepticism of our schools? It is a privatizer that wants to see our public school system fail. Understand that and realize that's what we're dealing with here. There's so much more to go, though, with assessment. Teacher Joanna, though, I want a little bit more, though, about the passions that gets Teacher Joanna going. 855-752-4842. One more time when we get back. Oh, yeah, I do like the live show.
Yeah, you feel like you back in it.
There's a different energy level. I do think that Jess and Johnny and I have turned the corner on giving the podcast the same type of energy and electricity that we do.
I've been thinking they're great.
Yeah, I figured them out, but they're just from my standpoint, there's just a different kind of, I don't know, I guess, in one simple way of like being a musician at a concert and playing to a live audience has a different type of, there's an electricity that I feel that is powerful and animates me in a way that I don't want to say now that the podcast, because I feel like now we're even really starting to learn how to really get more animated with just the podcast too. But
I think your length of the podcasts have been good too.
Yeah. I mean, and they do work from that standpoint too, to just be, so that they're not overwhelming.
Okay, so how do you want to close this out today?
I just want to talk about you and the how the work that you do about wellness and checking in and
Okay. Real good.
regulation.
And
and that doesn't mean the rules.
No, and I don't know if it's a big leap too, but I think of it. Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Save it for the air. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. 10 seconds.
Welcome back. It's the Dom Salvia Show. It's not Dom, it's Dr. Tim Slekar from BustED Pencils. Yeah, sitting in for Dom. Well, he gets a little break. Got my favorite, though, co-host, Teacher Joanna from Educators Amplified, joining me, talking. We were talking everything NAEP proficiency assessment. People are listening going, oh my God, how boring of a topic was that? Hey, we just want to point out, though, the fact is that these are the types of weaponization things that are used to constantly be talking about how our public schools, how our teachers, how our kids are failing. It's a negative story that continues earnestly, and that this article that came out really wasn't calling attention to something horrible that we needed to be worried about. It was truly a piece in their own best interests, which is the continued failure of public schools and kids benefits the privatization, charterization movement in this country. And so
the narrative of failure.
The narrative of failure. But, Joanna, but this moves, and teachers is thinking about this, and I know the number one, that creates a sense of stress and anxiety. When it comes to that, you've had, what do we do? And I remember our first time we talked about it, you're like, how do you deal with regulation? I'm like, I hate regulation, because I quickly went into, those are the rules that are making, no, not that regulation, but, so the mental well-being is what you're talking about. What does a teacher do then in this situation when they might hear from somebody saying, oh, you're one of those teachers that caused those low test scores?
Oh, goodness. Wow. I guess, again, we're kind of used to that narrative, and we have to then, settle into ourselves and recognize we experience something very different. When you're day to day in the classroom with children, you're experiencing something very different. You are seeing, again, strengths, imagination, creativity, innovation. So one, you've got to just, own your own truth. But if I had to say, that's not to say everything's perfect. I think that, maybe it was during the break, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of really sick of hearing about like what kids need to do or what teachers need to do, because I think our focus right now needs to be broader. And I think even when you reflect on all the topics we talked about today, there's this larger issue in our schools and in our society. And to me, it's about public health, and are we well? And what are our what are we doing about youth wellness in terms of addressing chronic stress, and again, nobody calls it these things. They call it, like I said, like bad kids or kids who
Right.
can't pay attention, or students who are addicted to technology, and high schoolers who are vaping in the bathrooms. But really the root of all of that is, these are all signs and symptoms of like not being imbalanced. And so I view a lot of, I'm passionate about, and what does the teacher do? We always say, when you can't get out of it, get into it. So, it's like we really then try to study what is happening. And so people on the ground are doing that. Teachers are being very, I would say, innovative. They're paying attention to what's in front of them, and they are learning, learning and trying to create the alternative in spaces, which is an education focus that brings into the whole child, the physical, the emotional, the social, and the intellectual. And right, I don't think that there's a one proficiency test
Right.
for all of those things that actually, and I remember years ago, right? You used to say, well, in order to even get the, let's say, proficiency score, you need all those other things. I don't even want to make that argument anymore. It's just more like all of these aspects of child development are important.
You need all these things because you need all these things, not because you
Yes.
need them to get proficiency. You need them because they're human needs.
Good point.
Human.
You guys always make fun of my human. I'm sorry. It's a silent H in my world.
It's because he's from Pittsburgh.
It's from Pittsburgh, over there. Oh, man. Time goes so quickly. Teacher Joanna, thank you for hanging out with Jess and I as we, give Dom a little time off and give him a break. Really having you here. Want to remind everybody, though, too, BustED Pencils, that's what we do. And tomorrow, right away, Wednesday, classes in session, huh, Jess?
Yes, it will be 6 a.m. That podcast will be available.
What do we have again tomorrow?
Dr. Jill Underly,
Dr. Jill Underly, that's
Instruction.
right. Yeah, she will be on there, on the podcast. And Friday face-offs, first face-offs,
free throws and
face-offs. And then Saturday too, the show live across all of Civic Media. Well, not live, but recorded, but 3:00 all across Civic Media Saturday. BustED Pencils for 1 full hour. Make sure you're there. Everybody else out there, though, listening to the Dom Salvia show, thank you for hanging out with us. Have a great evening. Get out there. Do something meaningful. It is the season, as we said. Jess, Teacher Joanna, thanks. Everybody, have a great night. See you next time.